It's called My Mother and Our Hunger. When my mother was small, her mother disappeared without saying goodbye. There was no explanation for it, but my mother claimed she was an ugly child. She reminds us that without a mother, she didn't learn to use makeup, to dress to please others, to do her hair, or find her way into being beautiful. Without a mother, she couldn't learn how to be a woman. She told us this time and again as me and my sisters leaned into the stretch and groan of our teenage years. She couldn't help us, she said. She didn't know about these things. My mother didn't cook or host parties. She didn't bake things from scratch or set out after-school snacks or bring in things from the garden that she'd grown herself. The absence of her mother had always been reason enough for her not to even try to do any of these things. My mother used to say, family always comes first. Friends come and go, but family is forever. My mother used to say, men only want one thing, don't give it to them. My mother used to say, I was so good, I only ate popcorn all day and nothing else. On Saturdays after her waitressing shift, my mother shopped for groceries, and on the days when she had to work late, we would wait for her to come home, our stomachs rumbling. My stepfather would say, she's coming, she'll be here soon. We'll eat when she gets here. All I remember is the hunger, but I don't know that we ever went hungry. I don't know if we were waiting because we had no food or because we couldn't bear to eat without her. The year before I left my mother, her own mother reappeared in her life after nearly 40 years. Alice had been living and working in Washington State, where she had remarried and opened her own travel agency. Alice's sister reconnected everyone after watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries about reunited families. For nearly 40 years, she had known that her sister's children and ex-husband were alive and well living in California. We still don't know why she kept that information from her sister, or why she didn't contact any of us sooner. I still don't know how a person keeps a secret like that for so long. This is the part where my hands stop. She called up my grandfather, Frank, and told him that Alice was getting older and in poor health, that it was time she reunited with her children. She gave Frank a phone number and asked him to have the children call their mother. When my Uncle John called Alice, she hung up on him twice. It wasn't until the third time he tried that she listened to what he had to say. Later, she claimed she thought it was a prank. She was concerned it was someone trying to needle their way into her finances. She couldn't believe the man on her phone was her real son. When my mother asked Alice to explain why she had been gone so long with no word, she claimed that after the divorce, she'd arrived to find the house empty. Some days, when we asked her to tell us again, she told us the neighbors delivered the news that her family died in a house fire. Other days, she told us she'd read about the house fire in the paper. She claims to have been heartbroken, but she left and didn't return until 40 years later, and only after resisting the return. There is no proof of a fire. There are no articles that I can find. It doesn't even make sense that she would show up to a house still standing and accept such a loss with ease. I wonder how her heart pounded when she hung up the phone, if she felt caught, trapped, exposed. I wonder if she really had believed her children dead, and what it must have been for the ghosts to take a solid form, walk through the lobby of the casino where they'd agreed to meet in Las Vegas, and sit down next to her in a booth at the buffet after piling their plates with food so they could eat and eat and eat. During the years I left home as a teenager, I moved in with my friend Nicole. Her mother Joan couldn't afford to feed all of the kids that she'd taken in, and she told us we could stay with her if we brought in our own food. Some nights I would sneak into Joan's kitchen and quietly peel open the refrigerator door, looking for food I could eat without anyone noticing. I stole flour tortillas, one at a time, smeared them with a thick layer of butter, and rolled them up to eat as slowly as I could manage. Sometimes giving in and eating was worse than not eating at all. When I was hungry, it was easier to wait it out until it faded to nothing. If I fed myself anything at all, I became aware of a hunger that needed more than I could give it. Back when my sisters and I were still toddlers, we lived alone with my mother in a one-bedroom apartment. I remember very little from this time. I don't know how we had dinner in a place that small, but there's one memory that returns easily. My mother chasing the three of us around the only bedroom, wild with frustration, upset about something. I can still picture myself running across the mattress on the floor, trying to get away, the feeling of a square room and no way to avoid a corner. How exhilarating and terrifying to feel her speed, to be the absolute center of her attention. When I was a child, my mother used to joke that she didn't want to be buried. She wanted to be taken to a taxidermist, to be stuffed full like a hunted bear. She would say, just take turns moving me from one of your houses to another. Set me up in the living room so I can see the television. This version of my mother needs nothing but movement, and none of us could stomach the thought of her like that, always watching, needing nothing, taking nothing, giving nothing. As an adult, I wake hungry, and the hunger is a relief. I accept the way it moves through my body. If I get out of bed and go into my kitchen, I can make myself breakfast. Pancakes drowning in syrup, eggs beaten to a scramble, toast smothered in butter, bacon fried and curling from the heat of the pan. In my refrigerator, in my cupboards, there is more food than I can eat in weeks, more food than I know what to do with, and I can cook it, I can make it, it is mine. I won't be left hungry. I can eat as much as I want.